Men over 60, top 12 foods that build testosterone and bedroom confidence. Gentlemen, there's a good chance you've been told that your testosterone will just keep dropping as you get older, that there's nothing you can do about it except accept the decline, slow down, and learn to live with less energy, less drive, and less confidence. Well, I'm here to tell you that's only half the story. Yes, testosterone naturally declines with age, but the idea that you can't do anything to fight back, that's a myth I've seen shattered over and over in my 30-plus years of working with men's health. And here's the surprising part. In many cases, the most powerful tools for boosting testosterone don't come from a pharmacy, they come from your plate. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, really, Doc, you're telling me what I eat can change how I feel in the bedroom? Absolutely. In fact, the right foods can support your body's natural hormone production, improve blood flow, and restore energy levels you thought were gone for good. And today, I'm going to count down the 12 most powerful science-backed foods that do exactly that, and wait until you hear what's number 1, because you probably have it in your fridge right now, but you've been eating it all wrong. But before we get into the details, do me a quick favor, hit that like button, share this video with the men in your life who could use a boost, and subscribe to the channel so we can keep bringing you more proven, practical tips to help you live stronger, longer, and with more confidence than ever. All right, let's get started, and I'll warn you, some of the foods on this list are going to surprise you. By the end of this countdown, you might be looking at your next grocery list in a whole new way. Why testosterone drops and why it matters. After the age of 30, testosterone begins a slow but steady decline, about 1% every year according to the Massachusetts Male Aging Study. That might not sound like much, but by the time a man reaches 60, he can be down 30 to 40% from his peak levels in early adulthood. And for some, the drop is faster, pushed along by chronic stress, poor diet, lack of exercise, too little sleep, or health issues like obesity, type 2 diabetes, and metabolic syndrome. Low testosterone is not just about sex drive. It affects the whole body. It can lead to muscle loss and weakness that makes everyday tasks harder, an increase in belly fat that raises the risk of heart disease, mood changes like irritability or low motivation, weaker bones that fracture more easily, and slower recovery from workouts, illness, or even a stressful week. In fact, a 2010 study in the European Journal of Endocrinology found that men in the lowest range of testosterone levels had a 40% higher risk of dying from all causes compared to men with higher levels, even after accounting for age and general health. That's not just about intimacy, it's about longevity. The good news is that testosterone levels are not entirely out of your control. Nutrition plays a major role. I'm not talking about magic pills or exotic powders, just real, whole foods you can find in any grocery store. Research from Harvard, the University of Graz, and other respected institutions shows that in men with mild to moderate declines, the right diet can influence testosterone just as much as some medications. And these changes don't just boost testosterone. They can improve heart health, brain function, and overall vitality. Think of your body like an orchestra with testosterone as one of the lead instruments. When it's out of tune, the whole performance suffers. But give it the right fuel, remove what's harmful, and suddenly the music comes back strong. The question is, what foods tune it up and which ones quietly turn the volume down? As we go through this countdown, picture your own plate and ask yourself, am I feeding my strength or am I slowly starving? So now that you understand why testosterone tends to drop with age and why it affects so much more than just your sex drive, let's get into the good part. Because here's the truth, you're not powerless. The right foods can give your body the raw materials it needs to keep your hormones strong, your energy high, and your confidence alive. And in this countdown, we're going to cover the 12 most powerful, science-backed foods to help you do exactly that, starting with number 12, a small snack that packs a big punch. Number 12, pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds may look small, but they are a powerhouse for testosterone health. They are one of the richest natural sources of zinc, a mineral your body absolutely needs to produce testosterone. Without enough zinc, your hormone production slows down, and research from the National Institutes of Health shows that zinc deficiency can cause up to a 50% drop in testosterone levels. In clinical studies, men who were low in zinc and increased their intake, just through food, were able to restore healthy levels within a few months. Pumpkin seeds also provide magnesium, which helps keep testosterone in its active free form, along with healthy fats and antioxidants that support prostate health. A 2014 review in the Journal of Food Science and Technology even linked pumpkin seed oil to better urinary function and fewer symptoms of an enlarged prostate, something many men over 60 face. I've seen this work firsthand. George, a 67-year-old patient, used to eat potato chips every night. I had him swap them for a handful of raw pumpkin seeds. 6 months later, he was 11 pounds lighter, had more morning energy, and his testosterone was up 15%. He told me, "Doc, I feel lighter on my feet and sharper in my head." The beauty of pumpkin seeds is that they're easy to add to your routine. Sprinkle them on salads or oatmeal, mix them into yogurt, or snack on them raw. They're inexpensive, tasty, and give your body exactly what it needs to keep testosterone production strong. The question is, if something this simple can make such a difference, why not start today? Number 11. Pomegranate. Pomegranate has been celebrated for centuries as a symbol of fertility, and modern science confirms it's more than just a romantic image. This vibrant fruit is packed with polyphenols, antioxidants that protect cells and improve blood vessel function, which means better circulation throughout the body, including where men need it most. A study from Queen Margaret University in Scotland found that drinking pomegranate juice daily raised salivary testosterone levels by an average of 24% in just 2 weeks. Another study in the International Journal of Impotence Research showed improved erectile response in men with mild to moderate dysfunction, likely due to pomegranate's ability to boost nitric oxide production and enhance blood flow. It's also rich in vitamin C, potassium, and dietary nitrates, all of which support cardiovascular health, and a strong heart supports strong testosterone. I've seen these effects in my own patients. Mark, a 69-year-old retired firefighter, began adding half a cup of unsweetened pomegranate juice to his breakfast. Within a month, his blood pressure improved, his energy was up, and his wife noticed he was humming around the house again. If you want the benefits, choose pure, unsweetened juice or eat the seeds fresh, aiming for about half a cup a few times a week. You can sprinkle the seeds on yogurt, oatmeal, or salads for extra flavor and nutrients. If one simple, delicious habit can help your hormones and your heart at the same time, why not start today? Number 10. Eggs whole, not just whites. Egg yolks have carried an unfair bad reputation for years because of cholesterol fears, but cholesterol is actually the raw material your body needs to make testosterone. Without it, hormone production slows down. Studies, including one in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, have shown that men who eat whole eggs have higher testosterone levels than those who skip the yolks. Eggs are also rich in vitamin D, healthy fats, choline for brain health, and high-quality protein to help maintain muscle mass. A 2011 study in the Asian Journal of Andrology even suggested that dietary cholesterol from eggs may improve the body's ability to synthesize sex hormones in older men. I've seen this work with my own patients. Carl, a 72-year-old retired teacher, had been eating only egg whites for years. I suggested he switch to 2 whole pasture-raised eggs each morning with avocado. 6 weeks later, his energy was up, his workouts felt easier, and his mood improved. His testosterone had risen by nearly 12%, and his HDL cholesterol was better too. For most healthy men, 1 to 2 whole eggs a day is perfectly fine unless a doctor advises otherwise. Pasture-raised eggs are best for their higher omega-3 content and richer vitamin profile. So if adding the yolk back to your breakfast could help fuel testosterone, why keep leaving it off your plate? Number 9. Garlic and onions. If your kitchen smells like garlic and onions, you might be doing more than adding flavor. You could be supporting your testosterone levels. Both garlic and onions contain compounds like allicin and diallyl disulfide that help lower cortisol, the body's main stress hormone, and high cortisol can suppress testosterone production. Animal studies in the Journal of Medicinal Food found that rats given garlic extract had significantly higher testosterone and greater enzyme activity involved in hormone synthesis. Onions have shown even more dramatic results in lab settings. A 2012 Iranian study found that male rats drinking onion juice daily had a 300% increase in testosterone levels. Onions are also rich in antioxidants like quercetin, which improve blood flow and reduce inflammation, both of which indirectly support hormone health. In my own practice, I've seen real results. Alan, a 72-year-old widower, started making roasted garlic and onion soup twice a week, and within a couple of months, friends said he looked younger while he felt more energetic. Steve, 68, added raw red onions to his salads and sautéed garlic to his stir-fries, and his free testosterone rose by 9% without other changes. For the best effect, use fresh garlic rather than powder and add it toward the end of cooking to preserve its active compounds. Onions can be eaten raw for maximum antioxidants or caramelized for a sweeter, gut-friendly option. If something this simple can help lower stress hormones, improve circulation, and potentially boost testosterone, why wouldn't you make it part of your routine? Number 8. Extra virgin olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil is the backbone of the Mediterranean diet, famous for protecting heart health, but it may also boost testosterone by supporting Leydig cells in the testes, which are responsible for producing the hormone. A study from the University of Tunis found that men who replaced other dietary fats with extra virgin olive oil had higher levels of luteinizing hormone, the signal that triggers testosterone production. Rich in monounsaturated fats and polyphenols, olive oil reduces inflammation, improves blood vessel function, and supports hormone balance. Research in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry has linked diets high in monounsaturated fats to higher total and free testosterone compared to low-fat diets. I've seen these effects firsthand. Carl, my 68-year-old neighbor and retired truck driver, swapped store-bought creamy dressings for olive oil and balsamic vinegar. In 6 months, he lost 12 pounds, lowered his blood pressure, and told me he felt like he had his swagger back. Jim, a 70-year-old patient with borderline low testosterone, started drizzling olive oil over steamed vegetables instead of using butter and saw a 10% increase in free testosterone within 3 months, along with more morning energy. For the best results, choose cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil and use it for salad dressings, drizzling over vegetables, or finishing cooked dishes, avoiding high heat to preserve its nutrients. If a simple switch in your kitchen could help your heart, lower inflammation, and support testosterone, why not start now? Number 7. Leafy greens, spinach, Swiss chard, kale. Leafy greens like spinach, Swiss chard, and kale are rich in magnesium, a mineral that binds to testosterone and helps keep more of it in its active, free form, the kind your body can actually use. A study in the Biological Trace Element Research Journal found that men with higher magnesium intake had higher free testosterone levels, with even greater benefits in those who were physically active. These greens also provide vitamin K for bone health, folate for cell repair, and natural nitrates that improve blood flow, which supports hormone delivery and overall vitality. Research in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition has shown that dietary nitrates from vegetables like spinach can enhance vascular function, indirectly benefiting testosterone health. I've seen this work in practice. Don, a 65-year-old patient who rarely ate vegetables, began drinking a spinach, banana, and protein smoothie every morning. After 3 months, his free testosterone was up 12%, and he proudly told me he had beaten his grandson in an arm wrestling match. Another patient, Ray, 70, added sautéed kale to his dinners 3 nights a week and noticed better energy, improved digestion, and a brighter mood. To get the most from leafy greens, lightly steam or sauté them to preserve nutrients, or mix them into omelets, soups, and smoothies. If something as simple as a daily handful of greens can keep your hormones active and your energy high, why skip them? Number 6. Red grapes. Red grapes are an easy, delicious way to support testosterone health. Their skins are rich in resveratrol, a plant compound that helps protect testosterone molecules from breaking down too quickly and supports healthy hormone function. A study from the University of Hong Kong found that resveratrol supplementation increased sperm count and motility in animals, and while more human research is needed, evidence suggests similar benefits for men's reproductive health. Resveratrol also improves blood vessel flexibility and reduces inflammation, which helps deliver hormones efficiently throughout the body. In addition, red grapes provide antioxidants like flavonoids to protect cells from oxidative stress and potassium to help control blood pressure. A 2016 review in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry noted that resveratrol may improve mitochondrial function, boosting cellular energy production and stamina. I've seen this in real life. Jim, my 70-year-old golfing buddy, keeps grapes in his golf cart cooler as his secret weapon for steady energy during a round. Another patient, Leo, 68, started eating a handful of grapes with breakfast and noticed less afternoon fatigue within a few months. For the most benefit, keep the skins on, where resveratrol is concentrated, and enjoy a small handful daily, either on their own, in salads, or even frozen for a refreshing snack. If such a simple habit can help your heart, energy, and testosterone, why not make it part of your routine? Number 5. Ginger. Ginger has been used in traditional medicine for centuries, and modern science now confirms its benefits for men's health. Rich in bioactive compounds like gingerols and shogales, it has strong antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties that help protect the Leydig cells in the testes, which produce testosterone. A study in the Tikrit Medical Journal found that daily ginger supplementation in infertile men increased testosterone by 17% and improved sperm count and motility. Research in the International Journal of Food Sciences and Nutrition also suggests ginger boosts nitric oxide production, improving blood flow and supporting both hormone delivery and sexual performance. It may even help lower blood sugar and improve insulin sensitivity, which are closely linked to healthy testosterone levels. I've seen this in practice. Harold, a 66-year-old patient, replaced his nightly whiskey with ginger tea and within 3 months was sleeping better, had more morning energy, and according to his wife, showed a remarkable difference in vitality. Another patient, Mike, 70, added fresh ginger to his morning smoothies and noticed fewer post-workout aches and more stamina. To enjoy its benefits, start with small amounts to avoid stomach discomfort and add it to stir-fries, teas, or smoothies. If one simple ingredient can improve blood flow, protect hormone production, and boost daily energy, why not make it a regular part of your diet? Number 4. Fatty fish, salmon, mackerel, sardines. Fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines are rich in omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin D, two nutrients strongly linked to healthy testosterone levels. Vitamin D acts like a hormone in the body and plays a key role in testosterone production, and men with low levels are far more likely to have low testosterone. A study in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that supplementing vitamin D in deficient men led to significant increases in testosterone compared to those who didn't supplement. Omega-3s in these fish also support blood vessel health, reduce inflammation, and improve hormone signaling, with research in the Journal of Steroid Biochemistry and Molecular Biology suggesting they may even enhance testosterone receptor sensitivity. I've seen this in my patients. Ron, 73, replaced fried fish sandwiches with baked salmon and olive oil, and within months his cholesterol improved, his energy increased, and his romantic weekends with his wife returned after 2 years. Greg, 69, began eating sardines twice a week and noticed better joint comfort and more endurance on his morning walks. For most men, eating fatty fish 2 to 3 times a week is ideal, and choosing smaller fish like sardines helps avoid excess mercury while still getting the full nutritional benefit. If a simple change in your weekly menu can boost heart health, lower inflammation, and support testosterone, why not make it a habit? Number 3. Oysters and shellfish. Oysters are nature's richest source of zinc, a mineral essential for testosterone production and reproductive health. Zinc is required for enzymes that synthesize testosterone in the testes, and even mild deficiencies can cause hormone levels to drop. Research in the Nutrition Journal shows that restoring zinc intake in deficient men can significantly raise testosterone within weeks. Oysters also contain amino acids like D-aspartic acid, which may boost luteinizing hormone and testosterone production, helping explain their long-standing reputation as an aphrodisiac. In addition to zinc, oysters, mussels, and clams are rich in vitamin B12, selenium, and omega-3 fatty acids, supporting nerve function, energy production, and circulation. A 2018 review in the Journal of Food Science and Nutrition linked higher shellfish intake to better sperm quality and improved fertility markers in men. I've seen this in practice. Ed, 69, and his wife, Susan, began a monthly date-night oyster tradition, and he told me it was keeping him young. Paul, 72, added mussels to his weekly meals and noticed more energy along with a measurable bump in free testosterone. For the best results, choose fresh oysters from reputable sources, and if fresh isn't available, mussels or clams offer similar benefits. With their powerful nutrient profile and centuries-old link to vitality, why not let shellfish earn a place on your plate? Number 2. Nuts, almonds, Brazil nuts, walnuts. Nuts provide healthy fats, essential minerals, and antioxidants that support hormone production and overall vitality. Brazil nuts are especially rich in selenium. Just 1 or 2 can meet your daily requirement, and this trace mineral has been linked to improved testosterone levels, better sperm quality, and reduced oxidative stress in reproductive tissues. Almonds are a strong source of vitamin E, which helps protect testosterone molecules from damage, while walnuts deliver omega-3 fatty acids that improve blood flow and heart health, indirectly supporting hormone function. In my practice, Vince, 65, replaced his nightly dessert with a handful of raw almonds and a square of dark chocolate. 4 months later, he was 12 pounds lighter, sleeping better, and his testosterone had moved from borderline low to mid-normal. Harold, 70, added 2 Brazil nuts to his breakfast each day, and within 6 weeks his testosterone had risen modestly while he felt sharper and steadier. For the best results, enjoy about an ounce of raw or lightly roasted nuts daily without added sugar, salt, or vegetable oils. If a simple, satisfying snack can boost hormone health, energy, and heart function all at once, why not make it part of your routine? Number 1. Grass-fed beef, in moderation. Grass-fed beef, when eaten in moderation, is one of the most complete testosterone-supporting foods you can have. It provides zinc for hormone production, creatine for muscle performance, high-quality protein for maintaining lean mass, and a healthier ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids compared to conventionally raised beef. Research in biological trace element research links adequate zinc intake to optimal testosterone levels, and creatine, naturally present in beef, has been shown to improve muscle strength and recovery in older adults. The key is quality and moderation. 2 to 3 servings of lean, grass-fed beef each week can deliver benefits without the cardiovascular risks associated with excessive red meat consumption. I've seen this firsthand with Walter, 71, who had avoided red meat for years. After adding 2 small portions of grass-fed steak per week, along with vegetables and olive oil, he told me, "Doc, I feel like a man again," and his testosterone rose nearly 20% in 3 months. Frank, 68, also improved his workout recovery and stamina after making the same change. If one nutrient-rich food can supply the building blocks for hormone production, strength, and energy, why not give it a place on your plate? All right, gentlemen, we've just gone through the top 12 foods that build testosterone and bedroom confidence for men over 60, and here's the big takeaway. You don't have to accept a slow decline in energy, strength, and drive as just part of getting older. The foods you choose every single day can either fuel your vitality or drain it, and the power to choose is in your hands. Start simple. Pick just 3 foods from today's list and work them into your weekly routine. Combine that with regular movement, quality sleep, and stress control, and you might be surprised at how quickly your body responds. I've seen men regain their spark in weeks, not months, just by making these changes. And remember, this isn't just about testosterone. It's about your heart, your muscles, your brain, and your confidence in every part of life. If you found value in this video, please hit the like button, share it with a friend or family member who could use a boost, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next round of proven, practical tips for living stronger, longer, and better. Thanks for watching, gentlemen. I appreciate you being here. Take care of yourself, take charge of your health, and I'll see you in the next video.